When you walk into Walmart, IKEA, or Costco, you probably just want a cheap couch or bulk toilet paper. But you are actually stepping into a highly orchestrated psychological experiment. Behind the sliding glass doors of America's biggest retail giants lies a hidden world of ruthless corporate mandates. Today, we are exposing 25 of the most absurd and absolutely real rules these megastores actually enforce on both their employees and you. 1. Trader. Joe's entirely rejects the modern intercom system, opting instead for a bizarre maritime communication protocol. If you hear a loud brass bell ringing across the store, it is not a fire alarm. Employees are trained to communicate exclusively through bell tolls. One bell means the checkout lines are backing up, and they need another cashier immediately. 2 bells mean someone has a specific question at the register. 3 bells summon a manager. It is a quirky, analog rule designed to keep the store feeling like a friendly neighborhood market rather than a massive corporate entity. But when you really think about it, the company essentially forces modern, adult employees to communicate like 19th century sailors navigating through a dense fog. It is a brilliant branding trick, but highly unusual for a modern grocery chain operating in the 21st century. 2. If you find a stranger snoring loudly in a display bed at IKEA, the employees are operating under a very strange corporate mandate. Let them sleep. While most American big-box stores would immediately call security to kick a loiterer out, IKEA's global policy actively discourages employees from waking sleeping customers. This bizarre rule originated in their Chinese markets, where napping in air-conditioned showrooms became a massive cultural phenomenon. Instead of fighting it, IKEA decided that letting people sleep for hours on their display couches was actually a brilliant marketing strategy that builds long-term brand loyalty. So, if you ever need a free nap on a Saturday afternoon, the Swedish furniture maze legally has your back. 3. Have you ever noticed that the absolute first thing you see when you walk into any Costco warehouse is a massive wall of incredibly expensive 90-inch flat-screen televisions? This is an unbending corporate rule known internally as the trigger. Management knows perfectly well that you did not come to the store on a random Tuesday to buy a $3,000 television. The electronics are placed at the entrance purely as a psychological anchor to immediately warp your perception of price. Once your brain processes those massive 4-digit price tags, the rest of the store feels incredibly cheap by comparison. Suddenly, throwing a massive $20 tub of mayonnaise and a $50 winter coat into your cart feels like a completely reasonable financial decision because your brain is still recovering from the massive television sticker shock. 4. Trader. Joe's operates under a mandatory, delightfully strange rule designed specifically to manipulate the most chaotic element of grocery shopping: bored children. Every single store manager is required to hide a specific stuffed animal somewhere among the aisles. It might be a plush lobster hiding behind the organic cereal or a stuffed monkey perched on the frozen pizza freezer. If a child spots the hidden mascot and reports it to a cashier, they are rewarded with a lollipop or a sticker. While it looks like innocent community fun, it is actually a highly calculated corporate strategy. By turning the entire store into a massive scavenger hunt, it keeps loud, bored children completely distracted, allowing their parents to peacefully browse the expensive wine and cheese section for an extra 20 minutes, ultimately spending significantly more money. 5. Costco cashiers are bound by a return policy so famously absurd that it regularly forces them to accept almost any item, no matter how physically ridiculous or unreasonable it is. Employees have documented strict corporate mandates, forcing them to process full refunds for an empty bottle of wine simply because it gave the customer a headache. A completely dead brown Christmas tree returned in the second week of January, and even a half-eaten bakery pie. The only items explicitly restricted by a hard timeline are high-end electronics. Otherwise, the employee must plaster on a smile, apologize for the inconvenience, and happily refund your heavily soiled 10-year-old mattress with 0 questions asked. 6. Before modern automated warehouses and robotic fulfillment centers existed, massive big-box retailers in the 1980s and 90s, particularly Sears, tried to logically solve their slow fulfillment times with a hilariously dangerous operational rule. Employees working in the massive, unforgiving concrete stockrooms were legally mandated by local management to wear four-wheeled roller skates during their entire 8-hour shift. They were forced to literally skate at top speed down narrow, poorly lit aisles while physically carrying heavy boxes of metal tools, massive microwave ovens, and bulky automotive parts. The corporate office aggressively prioritized fulfillment speed over basic physics and human balance, forcing regular retail workers to perform highly dangerous, unchoreographed acrobatic stunts just to grab a toaster for a waiting customer. The strict rules stayed in place for far too long, creating a chaotic environment of spectacular high-speed crashes. It was only after the sheer volume of broken bones, shattered teeth, and massive workers' compensation lawsuits began to severely impact their profit margins that the industry was finally forced to completely ban the ridiculous practice. 7. If you find yourself hopelessly lost while looking for ketchup in a massive Costco warehouse, do not blame the employees. Blame a very strict corporate law. Costco store managers are explicitly forbidden from hanging directional signs over the aisles. You will never see a helpful sign that says baking goods or canned vegetables hanging from the ceiling. This is a mandated psychological tactic internally referred to as the treasure hunt. By intentionally making you frustrated and lost, the company guarantees you will have to wander down unfamiliar aisles, forcing you to walk past high-margin items you never originally intended to buy. The confusion is not a mistake. It is a highly profitable corporate mandate. 8. Publix, a massive supermarket chain in the American South, has a strict carry-out service mandate that creates incredibly awkward social interactions. When you finish paying for your groceries, the bagger is required to ask if they can push your cart out to your car. If you say yes, they are strictly forbidden from accepting any tips for this manual labor. If you try to hand a teenage employee a $5 bill in the parking lot and they accept it, they can be immediately fired for violating company policy. The company insists this is just premium customer service, forcing polite customers to either awkwardly refuse the help or feel incredibly guilty for not being allowed to financially reward the worker sweating in the summer heat. It turns a nice gesture into a high-stakes corporate compliance test for the employee. 9. Target's asset protection team operates less like standard store security and more like a highly funded private intelligence agency. They do not just stop teenagers stealing cheap makeup at the door. If you are caught shoplifting, they often will not stop you the first time. The strict internal rule is to build a detailed, time-stamped portfolio using their high-definition cameras. They track a shoplifter over weeks or months, letting the total retail value of the stolen goods silently accumulate in a digital file. The second the stolen amount crosses the state's legal threshold for a felony charge, they finally drop the hammer and involve the police. Have you ever wondered if the silent security guard standing by the door is actually just quietly building a massive, legally binding dossier on someone in the same aisle as you? 10. Target operates a highly secretive facility that functions exactly like a retail ghost town. It is a completely built, fully stocked Target store located in a massive warehouse where the bright lights are always on, the shelves are perfectly faced, and employees are constantly working. But there is one catch. Absolutely zero actual customers are ever allowed inside. It is a massive psychological testing ground located in Minneapolis, where corporate executives secretly experiment with aisle widths, fluorescent lighting angles, and product placement using paid human test subjects. They silently observe how people react to different shelving layouts before they enforce those new operational rules on the rest of the actual stores across the country. 11. In the mid-2000s, Best Buy enacted a bizarre corporate strategy that actually categorized their shoppers into two groups: angels and demons. Angels were the highly profitable customers who bought expensive cables and warranties without asking questions. Demons were the bargain hunters who used mail-in rebates and bought discounted items. Best Buy employees were literally trained to identify demon customers and actively ignore them on the sales floor. The official corporate rule was to make the store experience so utterly unhelpful and unpleasant for these deal hunters that they would leave and shop at Walmart instead. Have you ever wondered if a retail worker was ignoring you because a corporate algorithm classified you as a literal demon? 12. During the 1990s and early 2000s, Walmart utilized a deeply unsettling financial practice internally known by the incredibly morbid, highly offensive title of dead peasant insurance. The corporation secretly took out massive life insurance policies on hundreds of thousands of their lowest-paid minimum wage workers, entirely without their knowledge or consent. The catch is absolutely sickening. If a cashier or a stalker tragically passed away from a heart attack or a car accident, their grieving family struggling to pay for the funeral received absolutely nothing. However, Walmart executives collected a massive, completely tax-free payout from the insurance company. The corporate rule essentially created a perverse financial ecosystem where a floor worker was mathematically more valuable to the massive retail empire dead than they were alive. They were literally using the tragic deaths of their own impoverished workforce as an aggressive corporate tax shelter to boost quarterly profits. It took years of massive, highly publicized federal lawsuits and absolute public outrage to finally force the company to abandon this incredibly creepy protocol. 13. Home Depot has a very quiet, incredibly bizarre corporate allowance known informally as the Working Cats Protocol. Because massive hardware stores feature sprawling outdoor garden centers filled with birdseed and fertilizer, they naturally attract massive swarms of mice and rats. Instead of constantly paying exterminators to spray toxic chemicals near the plants, regional management often allows local stores to officially employ a militia of feral cats. The store managers are actually allowed to use a dedicated portion of the store's operational budget to buy giant bags of cat food and litter. Have you ever noticed a random cat sleeping on a bag of mulch? That feline is literally a federally recognized pest control contractor. 14. John Menard, the billionaire founder of the massive Midwestern hardware chain Menards, enforced dictatorial rules that treated his store managers like misbehaving children. He instituted an incredibly aggressive corporate mandate where store managers had exactly $10 physically deducted from their own paychecks for every single shopping cart left in the parking lot. But it gets even dumber. If an off-duty Menards employee was spotted buying a simple hammer or a piece of wood at a competitor like Home Depot, the strict corporate rule demanded they be immediately fired for treason. Would you ever work for a company that legally dictates where you are allowed to spend your own money on your day off? 15. IKEA enforces a strict psychological rule on its employees that directly contradicts the traditional American customer service model. Do not speak unless spoken to. Swedish corporate policy dictates that floor workers should never proactively approach a customer to ask if they need help. The massive store is intentionally designed as a confusing, one-way labyrinth meant to overwhelm your senses and trigger impulse purchases. The employees are explicitly instructed to let you wander, get slightly lost, and only intervene if you actively seek them out and ask a direct question. This hands-off approach saves the company money on staffing while keeping you trapped in the maze longer. Do you actually prefer to be completely ignored by staff? 16. When Walmart employees spot a suspected shoplifter stuffing items into their coat, they are legally forbidden from physically stopping them or directly accusing them of theft on the sales floor. Instead, corporate protocol dictates a bizarre, highly uncomfortable strategy officially called aggressive hospitality. The employee is instructed to closely follow the thief around the store, maintaining unbroken eye contact, and repeatedly asking them highly enthusiastic questions about the products they are holding. The rule is to basically annoy the criminal with such relentless, suffocating cheerfulness that they get entirely spooked, put the stolen items down, and quickly leave the store. Can you imagine trying to awkwardly smile and compliment a criminal until they surrender? 17. Best Buy had a highly controversial, documented internal protocol where Geek Squad technicians were actively encouraged to act as secret informants for the federal government. While you thought you were just handing over your laptop to get a simple virus removed or a hard drive backed up, these employees were reportedly instructed by the FBI to secretly search customers' personal files for illegal material. The technicians were essentially acting as deputized federal agents, bypassing the need for a legal search warrant under the guise of standard retail computer repair. You brought your computer in for a broken screen, and the retail worker was secretly hunting for federal crimes in your digital photo albums. Can you imagine the sheer panic of knowing a teenage retail worker has total, unchecked access to your entire digital life? 18. Hobby. Lobby enforces what might be the single dumbest technological rule in modern retail history. They completely refuse to use barcodes. While every other supermarket has been scanning items since the 1970s, this massive craft retailer forces its cashiers to manually type the specific price of every single tube of paint and plastic flour directly into the register. The billionaire founder famously hates the technology, with rumors long suggesting he believed barcodes were somehow tied to the mark of the beast. Because of this bizarre, stubborn corporate mandate, checkout lines move at an agonizingly slow pace, and human error in pricing is astronomically high. 19. If you hate the music playing inside a Walmart, do not bother complaining to the store manager because they are completely powerless to change it. Corporate policy explicitly forbids local stores from controlling their own audio environment. Every single speaker in every single store is wired directly to Walmart Radio, a centralized broadcasting network controlled from the corporate headquarters in Arkansas. They use this central feed to meticulously manipulate the tempo of the music based on the time of day. They pump in fast-paced pop music during busy weekends to make shoppers move faster and slow, relaxing tracks on quiet Tuesday mornings to gently encourage you to linger and buy more products. 20. Costco is famous for an incredibly generous, practically unlimited return policy that covers almost everything in the warehouse. However, they enforce one heavily documented, incredibly morbid exception to this rule. Costco legally sells heavy steel caskets and coffins for funerals on their website. The strict corporate mandate dictates that employees are absolutely forbidden from accepting a return on a casket if it has been used in any capacity. It forces customer service desk workers into the highly uncomfortable position of having to explicitly clarify with grieving families whether the massive steel box they are trying to return has recently held a human corpse. Could you imagine processing that specific return at the register? 21. Trader. Joe's uniform policy strictly mandates that all store managers, internally known as captains, must wear bright, aggressively colorful Hawaiian shirts while on duty. This is not because the company was founded in a tropical climate. It originally started in convenience stores in Los Angeles. The corporate rule is built entirely on psychological manipulation. The company intentionally wants to project the illusion that shopping for groceries is a relaxing, exotic vacation rather than a stressful daily chore. By forcing adult managers to dress like they are attending a casual beachside luau, it subliminally lowers the blood pressure of anxious shoppers trying to navigate the incredibly cramped, busy aisles. 22. When a hurricane warning is issued, you would normally expect a massive retail store's corporate office to prioritize shipping extra bottled water, batteries, and flashlights. But Walmart's emergency logistics system operates under a highly specific, data-driven mandate regarding breakfast food. Years ago, their supply chain algorithms discovered that during a severe weather crisis, people panic buy Strawberry Pop-Tarts at exactly 7 times their normal rate. Therefore, store managers have a strict operational rule. The moment a massive storm is confirmed, they must immediately relocate pallets of Strawberry Pop-Tarts to the very front of the store alongside the critical emergency supplies. It is a brilliant, slightly hilarious adaptation to human psychology, proving that when facing an apocalyptic weather event, Americans heavily prioritize artificially flavored frosting over basic survival gear. 23. During the late 1990s and early 2000s, massive retailers like Walmart and Toys R Us utilized a terrifying corporate rule to prevent overnight theft that felt more like a medieval prison sentence than a retail job. They literally locked their employees inside the building. Store managers were strictly instructed to physically padlock the exterior heavy metal doors and chain the emergency exits from the outside when the night shift began. This horrific mandate trapped the entire stocking crew inside the massive, windowless concrete warehouses until the sun came up. If an overnight worker suffered a sudden medical emergency, had a severe family crisis at home, or simply needed to escape a growing fire, they were completely trapped. They could not leave unless a senior supervisor holding the master key physically drove back to the store in the middle of the night to release them. These multi-billion-dollar companies heavily prioritized protecting cheap plastic toys and discounted electronics over the basic fire safety, medical access, and physical freedom of their own workers. The dystopian practice was only halted after massive federal lawsuits exposed the nightmare. 24. Costco is famous for its incredibly generous, practically limitless return policy, but they enforce a highly secretive counter-rule to protect themselves from serial abusers. Store managers are authorized to execute what is essentially a corporate breakup. If the digital system flags a member for returning too many half-eaten food items, constantly complaining to the staff, or generally being a massive nuisance, the manager has the authority to unilaterally cancel their membership. They will walk up to the offending customer, refund their annual fee on the spot, and permanently ban them from ever shopping at Costco again. It is a brilliant, zero-tolerance policy that proves the customer is absolutely not always right. Have you ever witnessed someone being permanently exiled from the promised land of bulk toilet paper? Alright, we have covered 24 mind-bending rules, and there is only one final entry left. But before we get to number 25, it is time for the final verdict. In our opinion, the award for the most unbelievable retail rule on today's list goes to point number 12, Walmart's dead peasant insurance. The idea that a massive corporation secretly bet on the mortality of its lowest-paid workers to collect tax-free payouts is a level of corporate villainy that sounds like pure fiction. Do you agree with our verdict? Or did another bizarre mandate earn that highly questionable honor? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And now, our final number. 25. In 2012, massive department store Penney tried to eliminate their long-standing corporate rule of fake pricing. For decades, the company mandated that every price tag be artificially inflated so that when they ran a massive sale, the discounted price was actually just the standard retail value. It was a strict rule built entirely on psychological deception. When the new CEO decided to be honest, banning the fake sales and just offering low, everyday prices, it was a spectacular failure. Shoppers absolutely hated the transparency and completely stopped buying products. The customer revolt was so massive that the CEO was quickly fired, and the company was forced to immediately reinstate the corporate rule of openly lying to their customers. It turns out, American shoppers actively demand to be psychologically manipulated by giant red sale signs. Big box stores are basically sovereign nations with their own bizarre laws, psychological traps, and absolute dictators. Buying discount groceries should not require navigating a maze of corporate surveillance and behavioral conditioning. Next time you grab a shopping cart, ask yourself, are you actually making your own choices? Or is the store's algorithm making them for you? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button for more mind-blowing truth, and we will see you in the next video.